Buckeye Vodka, the #1 Ohio-made vodka, carefully handcrafted in Miami Valley and applauded for its Gold Best Buy Award, Prices and Value in the Beverage Tasting Institute, the 50 Best in New York City, New York International Spirits, and San Francisco World Spirits Competition, has announced a sponsorship with the Ohio State University Department of Athletics, and just in time for tailgating season, the Spirit of Ohio is now a proud sponsor of Ohio State Athletics. The collaboration between these two beloved Ohio brands is a natural partnership. Now, Buckeyes fans can enjoy their favorite Ohio-made vodka at college football and basketball games. Buckeye Vodka will be available at all events throughout the year at Ohio Stadium and the Schottenstein Center. Buckeye Vodka is a family-owned and operated business making premium craft vodka that's distilled 10 times. Buckeye Vodka is hailed by fans across the state as the smoothest vodka. From its inception, Buckeye Vodka has boasted the true spirit of Ohio, rock-solid determination in the face of adversity. Buckeye Vodka fervently tests and compares every batch against the leading national brands and will not stop until it's the smoothest. This personal attention to detail ensures that each bottle of Buckeye Vodka is just as good as the last, offering top-shelf vodka without the top-shelf price. Enjoy Buckeye Vodka at your tailgates, share it at home with your friends, and ask for it by name at your favorite establishments, not just on game days, but any day you're enjoying a refreshment. The sponsored partnership between Buckeye Vodka and Ohio State University Athletics was brokered through the department's multimedia rights partner, Learfield, the media and technology company powering college athletics. Please drink responsibly. Welcome in to Says Who Sports right now, a man who spent 13 seasons in the NFL, a first-round pick of the Philadelphia Eagles in 1986, went to the Pro Bowl in 1993, the essence of versatility as an offensive player, played running back, fullback, tight end in the NFL. His 600-plus receptions in the league still ranks among the top handful ever for a running back. A college football Hall of Famer at Ohio State, holds the record for all-purpose yards in a season at Ohio State with more than 2,400 in 1984, rushed for more than 1,700 yards that season, and who many say deserved the Heisman Trophy as much as, or perhaps more, than Doug Flutie in 1984. An Ohio State legend, Keith Byars. Keith, thanks for joining us at Says Who Sports. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here with you, John.
Keith, let's get right to it on that note. We're 40 years out from your amazing 1984 season. What do you say about finishing second to Doug Flutie for the Heisman in 84? And it's no disrespect to Doug in any way. Did you deserve it instead of Flutie, and why?
Yeah, well, man, I guess the calendars don't lie. It's been 40 years, jeez.
Crazy.
It doesn't seem like it until you say it out loud. And it's like, well, that has been 40 years. Yes, in 1984 was the last time I watched a Heisman Trophy ceremony live. I was there in the downtown athletic room that afternoon, at the athletic club, and when they didn't call my name, it was a little bit of a shock, to me, because a running back had won the award for like 11 straight years since 11 straight years, from John Capoletti to Archie Griffin to Mike Rozier to me. And it would have been me. And not that quarterbacks weren't deserving, but,
Sure.
It was the best player in the country at that time, and most of the times it was the running back. And for the season that I had in 1984, I felt confident. Led my team to the Big Ten championship game. Boston College was in an independent. They weren't even in a conference, at that time. And, I got a lot of respect for Doug Flutie. Don't let me please, preface that.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
He had an outstanding year, as well. But it just wasn't as outstanding, as mine in the Big Ten and the conference that we had to go through. Didn't have any bye weeks. And there was just 11 straight, hard, tough football games. And the best player, should have come, in the country that year. It was myself. I'm not trying to be braggadocious. I believed it at the time. I still believe it, 40 years later. So when I get that question, man, who won the Heisman that year? I said, nobody. They gave it to somebody. And so,
great
it was given away that year. I mean, now an Ohio State-Michigan game is the week after Thanksgiving. It's the Monday after Thanksgiving. When our season ended the Saturday before Thanksgiving.
Right.
And so now it's the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And my season was over with, as well as 95% of the country season was over with before Thanksgiving. It was only a handful of games that was played after Thanksgiving back in those days, and that just happened to be one of them, Boston College against Miami on Friday after Thanksgiving, which everybody's finished eating turkey. And what are you doing there Black Friday? Either you're going out shopping or you're sitting back watching football games, and that's when that game was played. And a lot of the voters were sitting at home waiting to turn in their ballots, waiting for the season officially to be over with, and they see a Hail Mary pass, they go with the last thing they seen. And so that's something that helped, Doug Flutie's cause. My season was over with, was already in the can, and, they don't, it's the Heisman Trophy is given away before the bowl season starts. So that's one of the reasons why, I didn't win, but everybody knows and that I was very well deserving to win the Heisman Trophy, 40 years ago.
Well said, Keith. And by the way, have you ever had an opportunity? Has it ever come up? Have you ever crossed paths with Flutie and talked about that at all?
Yeah, we've crossed paths. Every time I see him, I'm like, man, keep my trophy clean. Keep it dusted off. What's he going to say? Hey, what do you mean? Come on, Flutie's just big.
That's
so
awesome.
I said, so it's not like I'm talking, out of turn or behind somebody's back. I said it to his face.
Yeah,
you keep my trophy clean?
That's great
stuff. Yeah.
Great
so
stuff.
He's a good guy.
And that 1984 season at Ohio State, Keith Byars, and it was your junior year, over 2,400 all-purpose yards, more than 1,700 rushing yards, 22 touchdowns, averaged 5 yards a carry, 42 receptions, included a game, of course, a signature moment versus Illinois where Keith Byars rushed for 274 and 5 touchdowns, including a 67-yard touchdown run where you lost a shoe at the Illini 40, still found the end zone. Brought Ohio State, by the way, from way back in that game, 24 points down. Keith, as you look back at that season, put the Heisman aside for a moment, but you look back at that season 40 years later, what thoughts come to mind that you and your then teammates from that season talk about the most?
Well, right now, a lot of the players on the Ohio State football team, and, certainly since, Urban Meyer was the coach and Jim Tressel, one thing they always talk about is brotherhood. And even Ryan Day, they talk about the brotherhood of being in Buckeye football. Once a Buckeye, always a Buckeye. But that's just, they're repeating what we were as a part of back in the 80s and what was a part of back in the 70s and the 60s and the 50s. When I chose to go to Ohio State, I wanted to go to a university that had well-established tradition and great reputation, for not only putting out great talent to the NFL, but, those are the times of your life that are real precious, those 4 years between 18 and 22, 23 years old. And, So when I think of my teammates, those are, we're forever, ever bonded. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Columbus, to watch Archie Griffin get his statue in front of Ohio Stadium. And, I asked Archie, what do you remember the most about it? And he reflected on this is, statue's great, but this is not for me. It's for all of us. It's for my teammates, the guys who blocked for me and helped make this day possible. It's about the team. It's about the team. It's about all of us and the brotherhood, and that bond is special. So when I think of my teammates that I played, from in 1984 and 82 and 83, 85, that bond is special. I had a conversation with some of my linemen a few weeks ago. We was at Ohio State practice before the season started, and we was talking about the 40 years ago, the Heisman Trophy season that should have been. And I was like, and I remember saying it back then, I want to win the Heisman Trophy, not just for myself, but for us, because they said, I want to block for a Heisman Trophy winner. I would have that on my resume. So to watch Archie Griffin celebrate 50 years from winning his first Heisman Trophy, some of his linemen like Steve Byars and those guys, man, I blocked for Archie Griffin. Chris Ward is going into the College Football Hall of Fame this year, from Dayton, Ohio. He blocked for Archie Griffin. That means something. That's on their resume too. Hey, I blocked for a Heisman Trophy winner. So it's so much deeper. The bond from generation to generation is there. I've been at some golfing events, and especially down in Florida, it could be Eddie George, Archie Griffin, myself, Mike Doss, Joey Galloway, and we're sitting around in a room playing cards, laughing and joking, and some guys from another school be like, man, you're Ohio State, man. That's the difference between Ohio State and your school. You're talking 4 different decades of players, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and we're all brothers. I was like, Archie's my big brother. I'm Eddie George and Mike Doss's and Joey Galloway's big brother, and, and we all get along, together. You don't really see that at any other schools where you got those many different generations, a guy that played in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and the 2000s, and they're sitting around as if they was all in the locker room at the same time. It's a bond that's associated when you're a Buckeye. And it doesn't matter, the skin color, black, white, purple, green, or blue. We're all brothers. And we are all, connected. And that's where you hear so much hate on Ohio State, because they hate us because they not us. We all get along, and we all going in the same direction. And one thing, we all bleed scarlet and gray. Every Saturday, whether you're in the stadium or in your living room, we stop what we're doing and we're watching our Buckeyes, because we see ourselves in those guys. Whether we know us or we know them, one thing that we share, that bond, is wearing that scarlet and gray, and that really means something to us. So when we do talk to those guys, hey man, you're not just out there by yourself. Like when I always go to the homecoming game at Ohio State, and we have a captain's dinner, former captain's dinner, pregame meal with the team on Friday night, and I always sit with the running backs. And I've been doing that for years now. I sit with the running backs on Friday night and tell them, hey man, I'm that 12th guy in the huddle with you. I'm there, supporting you, cheering you on, and you're never out here alone. And like I said, I've been doing that for years. And a few years ago, when Ezekiel Elliott was there and J.K. Dobbins was just a little puppy, so he was like, Ezekiel said, I told you he keeps a big man, a big dude, ain't he? So J.K. like, yeah, y'all play the same position. We play the same position. I said, yeah, I play the same position as you. Yeah, just a little differently. Yeah, but he's like, man. So I still talk to J.K. Dobbins now. I'm just tell him I'm just a phone call away. So that even though we played in different eras, different times, what we share a same common bond. Being at Ohio State, and when you're a Buckeye, you're always a Buckeye. I still tease I still tease Ezekiel Elliott. Especially when he's with the Cowboys. Now he's back with the Cowboys. I said, Zeke, I want you to have a great career and a great season. Just take it easy on my Eagles twice a year. You're like, no, I just got to run harder against him. But it's great. All love. I said, Zeke, score all the touchdowns you want. Just take it easy on my Eagles.
That's awesome. Yeah, your guys from, again, your top 10 pick with the Eagles, in '86. Great stuff. And you mentioned, Keith, a moment ago those linemen, and just like the backs, all the greats you mentioned and the others before, and that will come along. The up front, the boys, and during your era, a couple that come to my mind, destroyers. I mean, Loudermilk, Kirk Loudermilk was an animal, and Jim Lachey. I mean, in the history of Ohio State linemen, people obviously think, Pace kind of set the standard. That was a decade after, but what do you say about Loudermilk and Lachey, among others, destroyers?
Oh my gosh, yes, indeed. I mean, Kurt Loudermilk, one of the best linemen I ever played with. Jim Lachey. Another, I used to love to, follow Jim behind block. He was a pulling guard. And I get behind him, he's going to move some people. I can still see his big old calves. He's the one that handed me my shoe, after at the Illinois game when my shoe kicked off. Jim Lachey is the one that handed it to me on the sideline. I think you're going to need this some more this afternoon. Thanks, Jim.
Nice.
But I was blessed. I played with great linemen at Ohio State. I mean, in my 4 years there, I played with 2 first-round draft picks. Jim Lachey was one, and William Roberts is another great offensive lineman that gets overlooked. Played many years with the New York Giants, Pro Bowler. So he was my left tackle. Jim Lachey, Kurt Loudermilk, John Frank, one of the best tight ends I ever played with. Mark Carrollwood's, Rory Graves, another guy who played with the Oakland Raiders many years. The Scott Zielinski, I could just name all those guys. I mean, they was all great players and great teammates. I remember being sometimes in the huddle with Kurt Loudermilk. This one we used to huddle. They don't huddle as much anymore. I remember one time it was 3rd and 3, and Kurt looked at me in the huddle for times that came back with the play, and Kurt was everybody knew I was getting the ball. And Kurt was screaming at me, Keith, can you get a yard? Can you get a yard? I'm like, it's 3rd and 3. We're going to block him for 2. Can you get 1? I was like, yes. Yes, I'm going to knock my guy back 2 yards. Can you get 1? I'm like, oh, I love it. Yes, I can get a yard.
What a line.
And we went on and got there first. But that's the kind of lineman you want, to have that kind of attitude and that kind of grit. And it was just, it was a perfect combination. I'm like, these guys are selling out for me. How can I not do the same for them? They're going to get me to the line of scrimmage. I got to at least break a tackle or 2 because I always believe nobody can tackle me one-on-one. You better bring some help, to get me down. So they're going to do their job. I'm going to do their job. That's the kind of harmony and a fellowship and a brotherhood that we shared, with each other. I mean, I was like, the first time I heard him say it, I'm like, is he not knowing the down and distance? But it had to click. Oh, that's a lineman that's coming off with attitude. I love it. So you want to be associated with those guys.
Amen. Serious attitude. Well said, Keith. So in 1985, after your Heisman runner-up monster season in '84, you entered the season at Ohio State as the favorite to win the Heisman. Broke a bone in your right foot in preseason, missed the first 5 games. Then in your second game back, re-injured it, missed the rest of the season. Keith, talk about how tough it was mentally and how you handled all of that in a span of just several months, less than a year. You missed what seemed a deserving Heisman Trophy and then missed most of the following season with such high expectations. Take us back there to what was going through your mind and how you dealt with it.
Well, numerous things. You go back to, 84. A lot of the voters didn't vote for me. Well, he can win it next year. He's only a junior. So we give this vote to a senior. And one of my goals at Ohio State was to be like my idol, was to win 2 Heisman trophies like Archie Griffin did. Sure. So I was on pace. If I'd have won that first one my junior year, then my senior year, then I got a chance to match the feats that, my idol Archie Griffin had already done. He showed that it was possible. So that was one of my goals. And so now that was off the table. My senior year, I was in the best shape of my life. I trained even harder, to come back. That was my revenge year. They're like, y'all didn't give it to me. Y'all didn't vote for me last year. I'm going to make it a no-doubter. You're giving me the trophy, for my senior year. And I still remember it like yesterday. I got hurt on Labor Day. We got practice. So every Labor Day, that we have, I think that's the year I hurt my foot. I broke my foot on Labor Day at a Labor Day practice, and I didn't even get hit. We was in full pads. I was just, making a cut and run that I've made many times before, and when I cut, I'm like, something's not right. And I walked over to the trainer by the name of Billy Hill at the time. I said, Billy, something ain't wrong with my foot. He said, what? I said, man, we got to get x-ray. I felt something. And then lo and behold, it was a broken foot, fifth metatarsal on my right foot, and they thought it was going to be healed in a week or two, 3 at the most, and it just lingered on all season. And then it wasn't until off season, until January, when I had operation, because that was the only thing it was going to take. I had to find a specialist in Columbus, Georgia, that operated on my foot. He did a bone graft surgery, and it was a long rehab that led into my NFL, into my rookie year. But I haven't no problem since. And then when I broke the other foot, once I got to be a professional, same type of injury. And so my first 2 years, now I'll get a little ahead of myself, I had no training camp for my first 2 seasons in the NFL, because I was dealing with rehab from what had happened in college.
Right.
But, what got me through it, to your original question, was great parents. My mother and father, God rest their souls down there up in heaven. But my faith in God, led to my father. That my parents, my faith in God, and my teammates, and my friends and family, got me through it. One of my best friends, and we call ourselves brothers now. We got different parents. Pepper Johnson, Buckeye.
Wow, what a player.
Pepper was he was there for me, every day, and so it kept me apart, of everything that was happening. So I was on the team my senior year. I did everything but play for the most part. So I was there in spirit. I was still a captain. So I fulfilled all my duties, and to make that season, as successful as I could make it, happen. And it ended in a bowl game victory for us, in a Citrus Bowl.
Keith, it's great stuff there. Thanks for taking us into that mindset and what got you through, and outstanding as far as your parents. And you mentioned something there. Coming into '85, you were in the best shape of your life. You said one thing that was always a signature stamp with you was work ethic, be it at Ohio State or all those years as a professional. From your perspective, Keith, what does it take to be great versus just good? You know what I mean? From a work ethic perspective, what's the separator? Because I'll tell you that I've heard from some notable coaches at multiple levels just in recent months, the on the scene constant of trainers. Everybody's got their trainer, which maybe separates them from the coaching of the team. There's the choosing not to participate, or some would say maybe the opt-out approach. It has to be trainer stamped and approved. So I guess I'm saying maybe in all that, a more selective deciding to work versus all in all the time. Is that accurate? And what's your perspective on work ethic?
Well, a number of things. Number one, you got to be honest, and you have to be honest with yourself. And when you look in the mirror every day, I could lie to you, I could lie to everybody around me, but I cannot lie to myself. But some people do lie to themselves because they're not being honest with themselves. You got to look at yourself in the mirror every day and say, did I give my best today? Did I work out as hard as I should have today? And when no matter what you say to yourself, whether or not you're being truthful. So you have to be truthful with yourself. Am I ready? Am I doing the proper things? And so once you get over that, which is the first biggest or largest hump, and then sometimes you do need a set of eyes on you, because you could think you could be doing something, but you could be doing it wrong. I mean, a set of eyes that somebody who you trust that help you get there, and you got to do what someone else is not doing. And like for myself, especially during my NFL days, during the off season, you have to really prepare. But I had learned that prior to. I would work out. I would be in the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would be done with my workouts by 7:15. So that's an hour and 15 minutes of nonstop working. You know, so when people say I'm in the gym for 3 or 4 hours a day, what are you doing for that long? You can't work that hard for 3 or 4 hours. You know, you're in the talking, you're fellowshipping, you know, you're not really working. But when you focus and you have the discipline, I mean, at 6 o'clock, I was already working. I wasn't getting to the gym at 6. I was already exercising and putting in the work. So by 7:15, I was done. I would come home, get my kids, drop them off at school at 7:45, 8 o'clock, go play golf, pick them up from school, have dinner, and then go back to the gym and do something later on that night. You know, whatever, get some more exercise. And so I was always, you know, pushing the envelope and staying in shape and knowing what you have to do. And so when you have a routine that works for you, not works for somebody else, it has to work for you. Then you can have longevity and consistency, you know, in your craft and what you're trying to do. And you can always, you know, stay in, you know, some kind of decorum of shape. Not always in football shape, because the only thing going to get you in football shape is playing football. You know, it's getting hit, getting up, walking back to the huddle, and doing it again. No one trains like that, you know, but you have to have endurance and stuff like that to prepare, you know, for the long seasons that you're going to have. And it would also cut down your recovery time once you do get hurt, you know, because you're in a certain degree of shape, you can recover, you know, that much faster.
Right on. I appreciate that. You know, I grew up on Ohio State football and all that tradition, your era, previous eras, subsequent eras, consistent winning at a big-time level at Ohio State. So as far as the Buckeyes and this year's edition, the 24 season, Keith, correct me here or share your perspectives on whether what I'm about to say to you is way off the mark. But for this season, yes, on the road at Oregon, for example, mid-October, seems it will be a big game and tough test. My take is, and not that there won't be some other tests, Big Ten, we'll see, but my take after the last few years is wake me up when it's early December and we've beaten Michigan. Ohio State's beaten Michigan for the first time in 4 years. It's in the horseshoe. And won the Big Ten championship and are only then beginning a playoff run. What do you say? Is that unreasonable given the resources, the talent that is second to none? To me, it's all about Coach Day getting it done. And to me, Keith, respectfully, getting it done doesn't mean just getting to the playoff. Again, am I missing something? What's your perspective there?
No, my perspective is, you know, I agree. And winning the national championship, not the same, but similar to winning the Super Bowl. It is hard. A lot has to go in your favor for you to be the last team standing. And so when you say they have a successful season, and most people's successful season, you get if you didn't win the championship. And I don't like that school of thought. You can have a successful season without winning the championship. You know, but at Ohio State, championships are expected. You know, and the first championship, which someone gets, you know, because you got the playoff era, it's kind of like downplay, is the Big Ten championship.
Yes.
That's huge. Win the Big Ten. Go win the Big Ten, and then we'll worry about that other things because you can't put the cart in front of the horse. You know, that's one step at a time, and you stay focused. You know, this summer when I went to watch practice, I talked to a couple of players, and one of the conversations I had was JT Tiamalao. And, you know, one of the former coaches was a few paces in front of me, and he said something to JT, mostly to fake, beat Michigan. And the coach walked away, and then I come up, and then JT, how you doing, Mr. Byars? I say, hey, JT, how you doing? I said, I know you get tired of hearing that. And he kind of like sheepishly yeah. I said, I know. I said, but I'm not going to give you no speech like that right now. I said, but I'm going to tell you this. You haven't beaten Michigan, just like a lot of the people in this locker room haven't beaten Michigan yet. You're 0-3, and it hurts. I've never been 0-3 against Michigan. You know, I was 1-0 the first time I played them. So I won the first time, and I heard all the stories about you don't want to lose to Michigan because that's a hard off season. It's a long off season, and I was like, okay. And it wasn't until I lost to them when I found out how true that statement was. I don't know about losing 3 in a row. I said, but I do know this, JT. You go out there, and when y'all beat Michigan in November, you're going to forget them other 3. But right now, Michigan game is coming. Don't worry about that right now. You beat Michigan every day. And when Michigan week gets here, that's when you explode. But right now, don't be looking toward the Michigan too soon before you take care of your business prior to. And that in Michigan would be even sweeter once it gets here. One thing that we did while I was at Ohio State, which they don't do anymore, if a guy missed practice for whatever reason why, he had to have a gold jersey on, a gold mesh jersey. And Earl Bruce said, well, if you're not practicing for us, you're helping Michigan beat us. So that's why I said, well, you play Michigan every day. So when you had guys that could be out with a knee injury, ankle injury, or whatever, and he can't practice today, he had to come out to practice with a gold jersey on. And so everybody in the team to see, look who's not practicing, he's got a gold jersey on. Man, you helping Michigan. And he goes, no, I'm not. I got us twisted. You're not helping us. So you had that internal peer pressure, like, well, you got that twisted ankle, man. Come on, man. You got to do something to get out of the practice field with the rest of his brothers, because when the Michigan game gets here, we going to need everybody. And so then when Michigan got there, when it finally was Michigan week, it's all in. And I told JT, once you beat Michigan, you will see what is, because you're only on the other side of the argument right now. Once you beat Michigan, you'll be 1-3. Instead, I'm claiming it right now. You'll be 1-3. And for the next 30, 40 years, 50 years from now, you're going to remember that one more so than those other 3. I was 1-3, but I beat them my senior year, and you'll take that with you. I said, that's what you will have. That should be your goal. And you'll see, we'll come back and to have this conversation after November, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And that kind of like lit him up, and he was like, yeah. Yeah, so that I just lit a fuse in him to tell, when Michigan gets here in November, and I believe we're going to take care of business. You'll see the looks on those guys' faces, and you'll see a look on Coach Day's face of relief, because it's been too long. It's been 4 years since he's beaten Michigan. He knows what it feels like, and and me as a player, a former player even, whenever Ohio State loses to Michigan, that's a long year for me. I can't wait until we play them again, because it's a bitter taste. So I've had it in my mouth for 3 years. Like after Ohio State lost to Michigan 3 years ago. That was the first one. That following summer, I was in Michigan at a golf tournament. And I'm sitting there getting my breakfast and at the breakfast buffet. And you ever get that feeling when somebody's staring at you? Mm-hmm. And I had that feeling that somebody was staring at me. And I looked to my left. It was Jim Harbaugh. He was sitting there just smiling at me. And I looked at him, and he says, "Hi, Keith." I said, "Hi, Jim." And he had this big old smile on his face. And I just turned and finished getting my eggs and bacon. I went and sat down. And I was like, oh, it just ate me up. And I know that Jim wouldn't have spoke to me if we had beat them that previous November. But because we lost, I had to eat crow. And now I'm sitting there eating, and then a few minutes later, Jim walks over to my table and starts some small talk with me. "How's everything going? You doing okay? How you playing? How's your golf game?"
I think I
Jim,
lost you, Keith.
Oh, I know you don't like me.
Hey, Keith, sorry.
But I had to eat that.
Keith, can you hear me now?
I do.
Can you hear me? Can you back
Yes.
up there? We missed you. You said he came over to the table, and then it dropped for a moment. Please share that again. Okay. So he comes to the table.
So Jim Harbaugh walks over to my table, and I'm eating my bacon and eggs, and he gives me some small talk. Asks me, "How's my golf game going? How you doing? Everything good with you?" And I know in the back of his mind he doesn't like me. He knows I don't like him. We don't get along. We know each other, but we don't speak. But we don't fellowship. We just, head nod and keep it moving. But because they lost, they beat us, he has some, he wants to have small talk with me. And I was like, this is the price I have to pay when we lose to Michigan. And I hadn't played against them in 30 plus years at the time. But that's what the guys don't understand. I'm not saying they don't understand, but that's what happens. That's how big this game is. Even 20, 30, 40 years after you've played your last Ohio State-Michigan game, it stays with you forever. And so the Michigan guys that I know over the years are still friendly with, they've been wearing me out the last couple of years. But that's part of when you're playing the greatest rivalry in all the sports, that's what it looks like. So I can't wait for November to get here so as to beat them, and I can get this nasty taste out my mouth, and I can call all the Michigan phone numbers that I know, and I could jazz those guys and jab them back again. I used to have a standing bet when I lived in Florida with Leroy Horde, one of the great Michigan running backs.
Sure.
The winner of the game, the other loser had to have a Michigan head cover on your driver for a whole year. And so he had a big Michigan bag with an Ohio State Brutus Buckeye head cover in his golf bag. Ohio State was on a winning streak so big, I finally said, man, you could take it off. He's like, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that was domination the better part of 20 years.
Yes.
Absolutely. And the guy who kind of turned that, not kind of, in a big way, turned that around was Coach Jim Tressel. He gets there. And it was game on in a big way. Buckeyes over the Wolverines for we'll just say 2 decades,
yes.
Almost a blanket. Coach Tressel, Keith, was your running backs coach at Ohio State in 84, 85. Talk about how Coach Tressel helped you improve as a back and the other running backs helped you get better. Describe his approach then, Keith, and did you see in him at that time something that told you this guy's going to be a strong head coach one day?
I did, in retrospect. We saw it then, when Tressel came to Ohio State, he was a running back quarterback coach his first year there. And Tressel told me this part of the story maybe about 15 years ago. We had a conversation. And the conversation, but let me go back, but before I tell you that story.
Sure.
Tressel was real attention oriented. I mean, he harped on the little things. I mean, Mike Tomczak would complete a pass and he would get a negative, like you got the ball on his back shoulder instead of the front shoulder or in his chest. So he was real stickler for the little bitty things, and but we knew that. He's going to be all right. He's just never been around this much talent before. That's what the player said. Tressel, he's nitpicking, but you're not at these other schools anymore. You're not at Syracuse. You're at Ohio State. We got a different brand of talent.
Right.
But I mean, he was really straight. Like we said we got to teach him how to dress. When we go on the road, you're like, man, what do you got on, man? Coach, you got to get you some swagger, some style. And so he was like, how I look. So this was, in the 80s.
Yeah.
So let me tell you this story from about 15, 16 years ago.
Please.
Tressel, I'm in Florida, and we hook up in Florida. And Tressel tells me, he asked me a question. He said, Keith, do you remember when I first came to Ohio State? I'm like, of course, Coach. I mean, he was coaching at Ohio State. Of course I remember you. He said, your first spring, my first spring, your first spring, my first spring there, he said, we're going through spring practice. He said, do you realize how many snaps you got doing practice? I'm like, no. He said, you got more snaps in practice than you should have gotten. He said, but, because after spring practice was over with, Earl Bruce brought Tressel in his office, and he asked him, you know why I hired you, to be the quarterback, running back coach? And he said, it's usually quarterbacks and receivers or just quarterbacks. You never put that combination together, quarterback, running back coach. And Tressel told Earl Bruce, he said, no. He said, well, Keith Byars. He said, I wanted you to coach Keith Byars because Keith Byars wants to be great. And he needs a coach that's going to push him to be great every day. And, so I think you can help pull that out of Keith Byars. This is prior to the 84 season. He said, I think you can help pull that out of Keith Byars. And he said, so Tressel said, reason why you had so many reps in practice is because you was wearing me out. Because when you wasn't getting reps, you was standing next to me asking me questions, the answers I did not know. He said, all I wanted to do was throw the football. I didn't know much about the running game. Did I care about the running game? I just wanted to throw the football. He said, but you taught me how important the running game was. So you would make me go home and study more about the running game, more because I know when I see Keith Byars, he's going to challenge me. And I was like, I didn't even know I was doing it. He said, but you made me understand the running game so that when you ask me questions, I can at least give you answers. Because he said he would talk to Bill Miles, who was the offensive line coach, and he said, because you challenged me as a coach, to be prepared, because every day in practice when I saw you, I know you was going to come with it. And I said, Coach, I didn't even know I was doing that. But he recognized it, or Bruce recognized it, that they knew that part of my personality, because I know I wanted to be the best. And so when I come to practice, I'm all about business. So I go to game all about business. It's fun. It's plenty of time to laugh and joke away from the practice field. But when we're on the practice field, I'm taking every mental rep, I'm taking every physical rep I could get. So I'm always on. So Tressel said, when you wasn't in, you was standing in asking me questions and reasons why this and why that. And I was like, I don't know, because the coach called it. That's why we're calling this play. But you helped me develop as a running. And so Tressel is known more now as a running coach than as a passing coach. Prior to me, all I cared about was throwing the ball all over the place.
That's unbelievable.
So I was like, so you made me learn more about the running game more than I ever knew. And he shared that with me, like I said, about 10 or 12 years ago. I was like, really? I didn't even realize. But that's the evolution of a great coach. That's why Tressel is one of the greatest coaches of all time, because he's adaptable, he's open to learning from whatever the source came from. And I didn't even know that I was pushing him that way. But, I'm thankful for, great coaching that I was around, from Jim Tressel to Earl Bruce, to a lot of the great coaches that I was, associated with throughout my career.
That's outstanding, Keith. So Keith Byars spurred Jim Tressel, known for that signature pounding running game, to learn about the running game back in 84, 85. That's just outstanding. Thanks for sharing that story,
Certainly.
Keith. Just a couple more on the college note, and then I want to talk some pro football with you. 13 years in the league, including playing for Buddy Ryan, playing for Bill Parcells, going to a Super Bowl, etc. The college sports, in this case, obviously football, Keith, landscape has changed dramatically in just a few years with the portal, transfer portal, guys moving nonstop, maybe an impatience, maybe a better opportunity, maybe a combo of both in there somewhere. The money that has crept in, big money on some fronts. What are your thoughts, Keith, about the powerful influence of NIL and the transfer portal on the game? Good thing, drawbacks? What's your perspective?
I think it's great. I think it's great in all aspect, and it's probably easily 40 or 50 years too late. It should have been a staple, way back when Archie Griffin played in the 70s.
Great point.
Even as early as the 60s, but by the 70s it should have been NIL. We've all should have benefited from that. In the transfer portal, that should have always been a part. Of it, because you visit a college on a weekend, whatever weekend you chose to come to, and you don't really know that you really want to be at that school, whatever reason why. You can be homesick, it could be whatever reason why. You should be able to transfer, because coaches transfer all the time. So if they can leave a job and go take a job, so shall the player should be able to do the same thing. It should be it shouldn't have to be the old rules where you had to sit out a year and all that. But coaches didn't have to sit out a year when they took another job. So, no. And as far as the NIL, absolutely. This is America. We should, hey, that's why people want to come to America. We have capitalism. People want to be a part of that. So you're telling me in the old system, if I take your scholarship and now that I can't work, because I'm on scholarship, and I just, but my last meal that I'm going to get paid for is dinner time, somewhere between 6 and 7 o'clock. is the last time that, so they're going to they're going to take care of 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then after dinner, I have no money for a midnight snack. We all come from different financial backgrounds once we get to Ohio State when you're on scholarship. Because I signed this scholarship, I'm limited. And if I was what college student doesn't do some homework at night and want to slice a pizza maybe at 9:30, 10 o'clock, or a burger or something like that as a, young college student. Where does that money come from? Oh, it has to come from home. We all come from different financial backgrounds. Some people have money, some don't, but we're all here on scholarship, together. Meanwhile, the school is making a whole bunch of money off your sport. And one of the reasons why they're making it off sport because they have you as one of their athletes. And they have multiple revenue generators. Too many to even count how many revenue streams that a college has. Whether you're Ohio State, whether you're Miami of Ohio, wherever. They have multiple money streams. But the player can't benefit from any of that. Your name, image, and likeness. You're posting, these guys' pictures all over the place. You're putting them in the program. You're putting them in your local restaurants and stores with your picture on there, but you get none of that. They're selling your jersey number in the stores. You get none of that. Come on now. Where does that happen at? This is supposed to be America. And then if you do this, how about I don't take a scholarship? How about if I just come without, attend your university, I apply, I get accepted, and then I decide to sell autographs to make money on the side, or I sell my jersey. It doesn't have to be. I know the copyright. I could just get a T-shirt and just take a picture of myself and just sign a picture, and do that on a Saturday afternoon after the football game. I think I'm gonna make more than what your scholarship is offering. Because what does it cost to go to Ohio State for an student? I don't know, maybe $35,000, $40,000. With room board. Let's just call it 50, or the high number. I think. Somebody like Jeremiah Smith can make more than $50,000, by signing autographs and, hooking up with the local car, without, under scholarship. Don't, keep your scholarship. I'll just, go work for this company, do some speaking engagements for this company, get me a job and make more money than it costed. I have more than enough to pay for my tuition, room, board, books, fees, and tuition and books. And I'm living, I don't have to stay in your dorm. I can get my own apartment. He's coming from Florida or wherever you come from.
Sure.
So everyone should be able to capitalize, off of that. So I love NIL. And then maybe one day they're going to figure out that, to give the old guys that was on scholarship back in the 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, some kind of,
pay it backwards.
Some kind of package. Yes, and pay it backwards. We're paying forward, pay some of it backwards. Because how much money did Ohio State make off of Archie Griffin winning 2 Heisman trophies? Still benefit off that. And the prices, that goes on and on. You pick a player, how many pancake shirts was it when Orlando Pace was there? What kind of money would Chris Spielman have made on the NIL? Chris Carter's, Terrell Pryor, Troy Smith. The list goes on and on and on of a lot of players. And they don't need to apologize for that. So I love the players today being able to come to Ohio State, and make as much money, as you can. And still get your grades, get your degree, and get all that other stuff. Because one of the reasons why you come to college, any college, is to get a better start on life. And what better way, if you had a great high school career and someone was to, sign you to give you a scholarship to go to college, and along the way give you some NIL money, because everybody's not going to the NFL.
Right.
Everybody's not going to the NFL. A very small percentage. But once you leave college, because one reason why you get a good start in life, and you've made X amount of money off of NIL in your 3 to 4 or 5 years in college, and now you're 24, 25, 26, ready to start your life with some money in the bank, maybe an apartment, condo, a car, and you're starting your first job with that already in that's giving you a great start on life. Giving you a great start on life. That's one of the reasons why you go to college. So why not? Why not? So I am 100% behind NIL. It's here to stay. They can't take it away now.
Oh, it's
You
way
try to take it
down
away
the
now,
track.
see what happens.
Yeah.
Yes, and it should have been that way. It could have been well management 40, 50 years ago. That's just greed by the NCAA and the institutions associated with it. They've been knowing they should have paid these players.
They took it.
Should
You're
have been
absolutely
paid.
right. They
And
took
that is what it costs.
Yeah, they took that mountain of money as long and as much as they could. You're absolutely right. Great points there. But in terms of Keith on the portal front, and you mentioned it early in our conversation, those great relationships that you still maintain and that you built as part of that team when you had guys at a particular school for let's say at minimum 3 years, and in most cases back then 4 years. But what's the trade-off there, Keith? And I guess I'm saying camaraderie and that's sacrificed a bit by, I won't call it rent a player because that's open. You go fill the needs, guys move in, move out, you go to the portal, plug them in, hopefully it works. So what's the trade-off in your mind, the building a team over a few years versus, hey, this is the way it is, we got a guy coming in for a year, hopefully he wants to win as much as I do. What's your perspective on that?
Well, it's for me now. I turn on my professional hat because it's almost similar to that. In NFL, the guy you go through training camp with him, you got drafted, you go through training camp, and you've been together for 3 months, 3 or 4 months of almost nonstop, and then he gets cut, or he gets traded to another team. And so we used to say, man, football brought us together. But football doesn't tear us apart. We're still going to be friends. We'll still be friendly. And that's what happens. So a guy is at Ohio State today, transfers out tomorrow. That relationship should, if it's a solid relationship, it still will withstand that. And you guys understand. I mean, look at the running back, Dalen Hayden, that's transferred to Colorado.
What a talent.
He spent, 2 years at Ohio State. He's very friendly with a lot of Ohio State guys. Now that he's wearing a Colorado jersey, I think his closest relationships at Ohio State probably will stay the same. They probably still like him, still talk to him. I mean, and I was sad to see him transfer. But I think he's a great talent. I wish him well at Colorado. But he still has relationships at Ohio State. I like the kid, and I mean, wish him well. So that won't go away. If I run into him somewhere else down the road, I'm like, yeah, you used to be a Buckeye, man. What's going on, man? How you doing, bro? I would still, love him
Still
up.
the
and wish
brotherhood,
him
right?
Still the best because it's a business. It is a business, and so I understand, both ways. I mean, there may be down the road in the next 4 to 5 months after the season is over with, come February, you think a lot of people are not going to come after Jeremiah Smith? Even though I hope he has a great season at Ohio State.
Sure.
But it's going to be people trying to come recruit him out. How about come to this college? Leave Ohio State, come here, come to us. I mean, look at Julian, what's his name, Isaiah Bond, that was at Alabama last year. Now he's at Texas. He had a good year at Alabama. Now he's at Texas. So Ohio State has to be aware of that. Like I said, we have got to keep our guys, because people are going to try to come and poach them. They're going to try to come and poach our roster. Look, we got Downs, Caleb Downs from Alabama. We don't want him to go to 3 schools in 3 years. We don't want him to go back to Alabama. Right. We like him here at Ohio State. So we have to work on keeping our guys as well as, we poach somebody's trying to come poach some of ours. So we have got to keep our players, happy. This coming week, next week when we play Marshall, hopefully we blow them out like we did Western Michigan, and we get a chance to play 3 quarterbacks. And if we play 3 quarterbacks, I would like to see us play Will Howard, Justin Kleinholtz, and Air Nolan. Do we need? I want to hopefully see what they can do with this Scarlet and Gray. I want to see what Air Nolan play. We've seen Julian Sand and Devin Brown already. I want to see 2 different backups against Marshall, especially we had a kind of game that I'm expecting against Marshall. You got 4 games to determine whether or not you're going to redshirt a guy. So you have to play these younger guys a lot sooner than you probably want to, otherwise you're going to risk losing them.
Great points there. Great insight on all fronts from you. Excuse me. Want to talk some NFL with you, and you mentioned it in terms of how that applies or so similar, parallel to the portal. Great points there. You played 13 years in the NFL. That's not for the timid. It certainly speaks to, back as we talked earlier, work ethic, preparation, skill. I mean, if the skill wasn't there, wouldn't matter how prepared you were, how hard you worked. The skill had to be there, and guys looked to you at your different organizations, drafted by the Eagles, several years there, the Dolphins, the Patriots, the Jets. But you played for Buddy Ryan, you played for Bill Parcells, you played with Dan Marino, on and on. Keith, what did you have? What tangibles and intangibles that led guys to look to you as the way it should be done, as a leader and as a performer? In other words, trusting you when it was all on the line.
Well, a combination of things, I've been a leader on every team I've always been on, from Little League to, high school to college and professional. It was the same way, because I learned from those in front of me. When I was a rookie with the Eagles in '86, Herman Edwards was in his last year with the Eagles. He got cut at the end of training camp, and we was a young team. I was Buddy Ryan's first draft pick, and so he was cleaning house, getting rid of a lot of veterans, and starting with the young guys. He wanted us all to grow up together. Mm-hmm. And Reggie White was only his second year with the Eagles at the time. And I just saw Herman Edwards a couple of months ago at a golf tournament. And I said, Herman, you remember when I came to the Eagles doing training, I got drafted by the Eagles, and that training camp, I was around you. I was a little, almost like a tick on your backside. I was following you around, and he played defensive back. He wasn't even a running back. But I ate breakfast with Herman. I ate lunch with him, dinner in his room late night, after the night meetings. I was like, because you were a veteran, man. You've been around 10, 11 years. I wanted to learn from you guys. And so I was a sponge. He said, yeah, I do remember that. And I was like, Herman, I said, because you guys, I was smart enough to listen to the veterans around me. And there'd be a time for me to lead, but to be a great leader, you must first be a follower, and learn how to follow before you can lead. And so even though he got released at the end of training camp, he still was dropping pearls of wisdom. And people like him, Ronell Young, Ron Jaworski. I learned a lot, from those guys. And, Jaworski, got released after my rookie year, and he went on to play a couple more years in Kansas City. But I enjoyed listening and learning that knowledge. I mean, my rookie year, our football team went 5-10-1. I'd never lost 10 games in my life. That was more games than I lost at Ohio State. 10 games, and I was like, I'm not a loser. And I don't like this. And it wasn't until my third year we made the playoffs. So my first year I was 5-10-1. The second year we was on strike, and the games I played in, we were 7-5. Those scab games was 3, so they put those 3 losses on us, so we missed the playoffs. Overall, we were 7-8, but the teams that the real Eagles played, we were 7-5. Then the next year, we had 10-6, and we won a division. And I was like, with the same core guys that we're bringing in, and we're growing and we're developing, and so that's where my leadership, ended up coming from. By my third year, I was one of the leaders of the team. Myself, Reggie White, Randall Cunningham. You were young, but we was up and coming, and that carried over throughout the rest of my career. So when I left, after 7 years of being in Philadelphia, free agency, I wanted to stay in Philadelphia, but business-wise, I had to leave. They wouldn't offer enough money. So I go to Miami, immediately become one of the leaders there. We got to play with Dan Marino and the great, Don Shula, great teams, 3 years there. And then my 2 years in New England, I got to play for another great coach in Bill Parcells. I played against Parcells many years in Philadelphia when he was with the Giants. And one of the reasons why Parcells brought me to New England, we were young upcoming team. We had Curtis Martin, the running back. Drew Bledsoe was a third, fourth year, quarterback, still trying to figure out, his ways and how to win in this league. And Bill said, I brought you here to teach these guys to win. He said, I can only imagine how many more games I would have, won if I'd have had you, my whole career. But now I got you, here in New England. Do for me what you used to do against me in New York.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, help me win some games. I said, Coach, I'm with it. Let's go do it. And lo and behold, we go to the Super Bowl my first year in New England. And, we came from Desmond Howard, kick return from, winning that Super Bowl.
And you had a touchdown in that game too, right?
Yes,
Lost to the Packers, but you had a touchdown. Will you, and you just made a great point. I mean, it doesn't get any better than Don Shula and Bill Parcells, two legends in their own right. How do you contrast their approach, Keith, on a day-to-day basis as head coaches, opposite ends of the spectrum or not so much, Shula and Parcells?
Yes. Opposite ends of the same success spectrum. I love playing for Coach Shula. Coach Shula wanted to make sure you was prepared. When he give you the game, give you the playbook, know every play in that playbook because you never know when I'm going to call it. Whether we practice it a lot this week or not, you should still know it, and I'm expecting perfection out of you. I mean, and so, he was a great coach for a veteran. He would a lot of times let me and Dan Marino and Keith Jackson and Irvin Fryer and Mark Ingram and y'all go over in that other field and work some stuff out. So could you come over here with the rest of the team? I need you to be ready. Y'all go work on that. And so he was really good, for a veteran. And, he pushed us, every day. But then you get, when I go to play for Bill Parcells, different approach, but you're getting the same results, Whereas, let's say, for example, Shula only mostly dealt with the starters of the football team, because once you're starting, you really get the head coach's total attention. He sees your potential as a backup, and then once you're started, you're getting more Don Shula one-on-one. Whereas Parcells is on every guy every day, whether you was a starter or a backup. He's just a different approach. And I used to accuse Bill Parcells of having a dartboard in his office with 53 names on it, and he's going to throw about 3 or 4 darts, and whatever name he hits, he's going to be on your behind all day today. Wow. So no matter what happens, so the days that my name came up on the dartboard, it could be a regular Wednesday or Thursday at practice. That day, I'm not going to do anything right in his eyes. He's going to yell at me. He's going to scream at me. He's going to have a problem with everything I do. But as a veteran, I kind of, my name came up today. That's why he's just going to be a little extra on me. I may have caught a ball with one hand. Well, you better use 2. You drop it with 1. I'm like, Coach, I caught the ball. You see me catch one hand all the time. Just little things. He's going to be on you. Well, it could be Vinny Testaverde's day that day in practice. He could start off doing a 7-on-7 period and miss his first 2 passes for whatever reason why. Well, are you going to complete a pass today, Vinny? Or geez, Coach, it was good defense. It was bad, got batted down. He's just going to be on you all the time. But he did that. That's the first coach I seen coach the whole roster. He'll be back there with the punt returners, talking about, hey, why are you catching the ball that way? Get up in the hole. He's talking to the kickers, hey, the long snappers. You got to get that ball back a little faster. You got to get it. You're going to get blocked slow as you're snapping the ball. Get it back there on time in no rhythm. So he's constantly, pushing the envelope on everybody on the team. And so when we go for it on 4th down, in the middle of the field, we've already talked about it. He didn't have to call timeout. Hey, we're going 4th down. Oh, let's go for it. We talked about this in practice on Wednesday and Thursday. So great coach, great approach. And, I love, playing for. So when I get the question, who's the best coach you ever played for? I always cringe. Oh, gosh, I'm spoiled. I'm spoiled. Oh, you're talking to a professional, Buddy Ryan. He's my first pro coach. He taught me how to be a pro. Because if you could play for Buddy Ryan, you could play for anybody. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you that. What did you learn most from Buddy Ryan? And you're saying taught you how to be a pro.
Yes. I mean, he taught me how to be a pro from the standpoint, his word was his bond. Buddy he fought in the Korean War when he was 16 years old. He lied on his birth certificate so he can go fight in the Korean War. So
Wow.
word means something. So if he tell you you're going to start, you're going to start. If he tell you you're going to be cut, you're going to be cut. I mean, he was a nose straight. If you want a straight answer, go to Buddy Ryan.
You knew where he stood with him, right?
You knew exactly where he stood. And, he's like, if I tell you can play, you can play. If I say you're going to play, you don't have to like what I say, but my opinion is the only one that matters around here. And you can come to him and get a straight answer. He had an open door policy. And I remember one time I didn't make the Pro Bowl. Everybody thought I was going to make the Pro Bowl. But at that time they didn't even have a fullback in the Pro Bowl. Mm-hmm. And we go out to practice. They announced the Pro Bowl before practice. So we go out to practice. And I was somewhat down the dumps because I didn't make it. I know I had a Pro Bowl year, but because I played fullback, they didn't vote fullbacks in the Pro Bowl. And I think I finished like fifth in the voting. And a ball was thrown at me in practice, and it was over my head. And Buddy Ryan made a sly remark that if you'd have caught that ball, maybe you'd have made the Pro Bowl. And I looked at Buddy, and I was hurt because he was like, you didn't have to say that. Yeah, and he knew I was hurt. Yeah, he cut me hard. And so after practice, I walked in Buddy Ryan's office, and I slammed the door. I said, I want to talk to you. And he was sitting back, what's going on? And I brought up the comment that he made. And Buddy looked me in the eye, and he said, and he doesn't do it very often. He said, I apologize. He said, I know I shouldn't have said it, but I was trying to be coy because I know you should have made the Pro Bowl. And I know I could see in your sense when you went out to practice how you was still, I was trying to bring some levity to the situation because I know you should. To me, you're my Pro Bowler. You should have made it. And, so I appreciate you, coming to me to say, because I know when I said it, you was kind of like, but that was kind of open, honest relationship that you could have with a man. That, he said that when he told me I was his Pro Bowler, because I know Buddy doesn't hand out compliments very easily, but my whole countenance changed because I know he had my back and I know how he felt about me. And I was like, I'll run through a brick wall for this man because, I appreciate the honesty. And, I was like, well, that's all that matters. Because I know if you said I should have went there, I know I should have went there, I'll be okay. I know I whatever. I'm sure I shook his hand, and we got along. I had a great relationship with him, and that's all you can ask out of somebody. Just be honest with me, whether I like what you say or don't like what you say. Just say it to me, because and it was a two-way street. And Buddy was one of the best coaches I ever played for. So professionally, it's a combination of you got to put all three of those guys together. Buddy Ryan, Don Shula, and Bill Parcells, and make them into one, because all three of those guys, were high on my list that I can't put one over the other. If I was the only way I could put one over the other, if I had to play for if I had to play for Don Shula, maybe in the late 70s or early 80s when I had the total best of him. But in the 90s, I didn't, he was, I was there toward the end of his career, but still enough of his career to recognize greatness, in that man. And I had the utmost respect for Don Shula, loved him as a coach, loved playing for him. And Bill Parcells, just a great experience, of playing, for Bill. So Bill, Buddy, Don Shula, it doesn't get any better than that. If you had the opportunity to play for all three of those in your career, you've had a great career.
Hey, gosh, amen, Keith. That says it all right there. Gosh, the character, the knowledge that you were able to share, the things you learned, just amazing. Do you, on the Parcells front, do you talk with Bill these days?
I haven't talked to Bill in a while. It's probably been a couple of years since I've seen Bill, but when we talk, it's like we picked up the phone and talked yesterday. We just fall right back in, to the conversation. To our relationship, because that's what we talked about earlier. When you have a bond, with a guy, it's forever there. And so the bond that I have, with Parcells is real special. And like I said, when I look back over my career, I'm 60 years old now. Please can't believe it. And think of all the people and the places and the things I've went. You know, every time when I was at Ohio State, to go back to Ohio State for a moment, when I was there to get the opportunity to see Woody Hayes live and in person, you know, was special to me. You know, because Woody, when my recruiting visit, I went to lunch with Woody Hayes and Earl Bruce at the old High Line restaurant. In Columbus. And that afternoon, that Saturday afternoon, I probably only said, maybe asked about 3 or 4 questions, because I'm sitting in the middle, Earl Bruce is on my left, Woody Hayes is on my right, and they're dropping pearls of wisdom on me.
You're just soaking
and
it
I am just soaking it all in. And so for the next 4 years at Ohio State, whenever Woody Hayes would show up at practice, you know, and he wanted to share words with the team, it would take a knee and accept these words of wisdom. Woody Hayes always he still had an office in the ROTC building. You could just walk over there and knock on his door and, hey, come on in. So I spent countless times, you know, hours with Woody Hayes, and I didn't even play for him. But he would make time to sit back and talk and, you know, have a conversation. You know, he met my mother and father on my recruiting visit at Ohio State. He came to dinner that Saturday night, and for the next 4 years, whenever Woody Hayes saw me, he would ask me how my parents were doing. He didn't say, how's your mother and father doing? Woody Hayes would say, how's Reginald Margaret doing? He knew my mother and father's first name, and I didn't even play for him. So the impact that Woody Hayes, you know, made on my life, and different, you know, words of wisdom and advice that he gave me my 4 years at Ohio State, even after I was hurt, you know, Woody still had some words for me. I mean, it's just, you know, like one thing he said, you win with people. And one thing about being at Ohio State, they have some of the best people that you will ever come in contact with in your life. And I was fortunate in my 4 years at Ohio State to come across a lot of great people, and Woody Hayes was one of them. You know, so when I look back and talk to younger guys today, I said, Woody Hayes, I didn't play for him, but I got to know the man. And, you know, so it's not just a name on a building or a statue. You know, so I don't, you know, take that lightly that I didn't ever play for Woody Hayes, but I got to know him and know who he was and what he stood for. So you got Woody Hayes in college. You got Don Shula, Bill Parcells, you know, Buddy Ryan, one of the best defensive minds in all of pro football. You know, to have an association with them, you know, my football knowledge, you know, I've been to the, you know, to the Pantheon and to the greatest of lights, and so a lot of things that I'm sharing on my football knowledge on my, you know, my radio show, and those are not. It's come from some of the greatest minds of football. So when I talk football, when I talk sports, I'm not just me. It's not just Keith Byars. It's Keith Byars with a lot of wealth of wisdom and knowledge that I've been blessed to be around. A couple of years ago, I was at Ohio State game, and Ryan Day had made a call that I didn't agree with, and the person next to me said, "Well, you think you know more than Ryan Day?" Yeah. I said, Ryan Day. I love Ryan Day. He's my coach, but I'm more football astute than him. I've been around a lot longer than me. I said, where was Ryan Day in 1982 and 83 and 84, 85 when I was here on this campus? They was like, huh? I said, Ryan Day was barely born.
Yeah. Wow. What a great way to put it.
That's, Woody. I've been around a lot of knowledge prior to Ryan Day, and I love Ryan Day. He's my coach.
Yeah,
Let's not want to get in that intellectual conversation with me on that.
That is.
And a person like, ooh, you got a point. I'm like, I know.
That is bringing it home strong, Keith, and just a couple more quick ones, and so appreciative of the time you've taken and the insight and the stories and the wisdom. Speaking of knowledge that you have shared with us on the Woody front, aside from the character and the person and the time he took with you and your parents, strictly, I mean, what coach has there ever been that appreciated the art of running the ball, and especially that ball carrier than Woody Hayes? What do you recall Woody saying to you? What pops to mind about his appreciation for Keith Byars, the running back? I mean, the speed, the power, the toughness. What did Woody say?
Well, probably one of the first conversation I ever had with Woody Hayes during recruiting, when he called my house, and my sister answered the phone, and she said Woody Hayes was on the phone. I'm like, Woody, he's not even the coach. Woody Hayes not calling me, not him. And I pick up the phone, and it was Woody Hayes. Who doesn't know Woody Hayes' voice? You know, if you live in Ohio, you know
Right,
Woody Hayes' voice. Not imposter. And Woody Hayes, basically cussed me out because I hadn't committed to Ohio State yet. He started, using some profanity on the phone. Like, why haven't you? I said, Coach, I'm coming up there next week for a visit. Well, I want to meet you. I want to meet you too. I love you. So it starts there. But, and when one of the things he said, you want to be great. All the great players in Ohio stay in Ohio. I'm hearing a lot of good things about you. And, you want to be great, you need to be here. And so I remember that. So then once I came to Ohio State, he would, reference to that first conversation, about, my greatness, and are you willing to pay the price to be great? Are you working hard in practice? Are you doing it? Because greatness is just, given. You got to work for it. And he would tell me Archie Griffin stories, how hard Archie worked every day. And, he knew how I felt about Archie Griffin. You grew up in Ohio in the 70s, and you're not an Archie Griffin fan. You're not a fan. Right. So I was like, I watched a lot of Archie Griffin. Tell me what he did. I want to know. So I learned a lot, from him. So those things, he would just challenge me on my work ethic. Just stay, because if you do it, it would carry you on far beyond Ohio State. So, again, he was instilling me my football work ethic part of it, that he was just, reinforcing that to me in a lot of the conversations I had, with Woody Hayes. And it carried over. I mean, look, 4 years at Ohio State, 13 years in the National Football League. You don't do that on accident. you do that on the shoulders of a lot of great people that, have blessed you in your life.
Amen. What a journey. Amazing stuff you've shared with us, and again, so appreciative of your time, and you're doing the radio thing, and you have been doing the radio thing in Dayton, right? You're a Dayton, Ohio
Yes.
guy. You're doing it in Dayton. Share your thoughts about your years into it, your appreciation for doing radio and talking with fans, as you said, talking football from a strong knowledge perspective. But what's your perspective on all of that from a media front?
Well, I like it from the standpoint of, trying to give listeners something they haven't heard before. And so sometimes some of my opinions come off being contrarian. I was like, because I'm not like a lot of other people. I'm supposed to be, because they haven't went through the same school of hard knocks and the same through school. I don't necessarily repeat what they've already heard. So a lot of people who listen to my show, they're hearing it from a totally different platform, perspective, I should say, than most of the radio, talk show hosts, because a lot of them haven't played the game, and they can only see things, from the outside in. I see them from the outside in and from the inside out, from all the different angles, to see the game, and I recognize that I don't have any ego, but I don't downplay my knowledge. One of my friends, he's a young guy, he's in his mid-30s, and when he comes back to me and telling me with a certain journalist said, who never played the game, and one of his favorite guys is Stephen A. Smith. No problem with Stephen A. Smith. But I'm like, Stephen A. Smith talking to football and Keith Byars talking about football is night and day difference. So you don't come talk to me about what he said. I said, yeah, but no, I said, I don't need to hear that. I said, talk to me from someone on this level. I said, I obey the law. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I am not going to get into a debate with a police officer who does that every day. Just because I've seen some police shows and some TV shows and a movie, I don't know about policing. I don't know about walking up on a car at 10:30 at night and it's a rainy night asking for license and registration. I don't know. I don't know that feeling. I got the utmost respect for those who do. I know nothing about running to a burning building because I'm a firefighter. I've seen the movies. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to talk about being a firefighter. Football is what I do know. I can talk about that. So then that kind of, but I'm like, no, man, I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything like that. But what I know about, I speak about. otherwise, I'm just going to just give you somewhat of an opinion, not a fact, on what I think about what it looks like running to a burning building, or what it looks like pulling over somebody on a dark night or for a traffic stop. What's that feeling look like? I don't know what that feeling looks like. Nor do I want to know, because I don't want to be a police officer. And God bless those that are. But I'm not going to be that person.
Amen. And to bring that home, we all could only have hoped, and never were, so many of us, to be there, to know what it felt like to be Keith Byars at Ohio State running wild in '84, or 13 years in the league, big man, speed, power, catching passes with just silk hands out of the backfield. Such a leader. Keith, thank you so much. Oh, where do we find you radio-wise for people that are in the Dayton area or happen to be? I mean, where do we find you? Radio.
Oh, you can find me at 610 Wing AM, the ESPN affiliate, right here. Wing AM, 610 WING AM. You can find me right there. ESPN. It's real easy, and you can follow me on social media, at KByers41. Get me on Twitter. You can find me on there.
Twitter
but
is
I'm easy.
KByers41 is your Twitter handle?
Is my Twitter handle, yep.
Gotcha. Hey, Keith, so appreciate what you're about, what you've done, sharing that wisdom and knowledge with others, and I would say perhaps most importantly for your humility. You know what you know, as you just mentioned. You also know what you don't know, and your respect for all of it is terrific. Thanks again so much for joining us at Says Who Sports. Stay well.
Certainly. I appreciate it, John. Have a great day.
Thank you too, Keith.